Hello, and welcome to IRI Growth Insights, featuring IRI thought leaders, industry partners, and guests. For more than 40 years, IRI has been known for its invaluable data, but these podcasts delve into the insights the data reveal to fuel market disruption and market growth for those in the CPG, retail, healthcare, and media markets. I'm your host, Joan Driggs, coming to you from IRI's corporate headquarters in Chicago. Hello, and welcome to IRI Growth Insights. During our last podcast episode featuring NPD colleagues Joe Derechowski and Ben Arnold, Ben mentioned that he and Paul Gagnon, another NPD colleague, would be presenting at the Consumer Electronics Show. For those unable to attend, I've invited Ben and Paul back to share some of their insights from their presentation. So first, let me reintroduce Ben Arnold, who is a consumer technology industry analyst with NPD. I really enjoy Ben's enthusiasm for consumer habits and usage in the tech space. And I'd like to introduce Paul Gagnon, NPD's consumer technology industry advisor. Paul has been entrenched in the tech industry for 25 years, with a special focus on display technologies, as well as the intersectionality of consumer electronics technology, devices, and applications. So welcome to you both.
Thanks, Joan. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So before we jump into the highlights of your presentation, I have a question for you, Paul. So while we were recording the last podcast with Ben and Joe, you were in Taiwan. And as a destination, that is screaming technology and advanced manufacturing. So can you tell us a little bit about your trip?
Yeah, it was really good to be back in Taiwan. It's been, for me, 5 years since I last was able to visit. And we had a jam-packed week of meeting with companies that span the gamut from key component manufacturers, semiconductor companies, to companies that make finished products, OEMs, brands, just a huge range of companies. And, for me, it was a good chance to meet up with people in person since the pandemic began, of course. Taiwan just recently relaxed some of their restrictions. So, we really wanted to take advantage of that opportunity. But it was also, good to get a sense of where their thinking lies right now, as we kind of pivot from, really great growth, kind of a rising tide lifts all ships market the past few years with its, with various challenges, especially supply chain challenges, into kind of a more normal, but still challenging in different ways market environment. And it was interesting to hear how so many of the companies were really as perplexed as we are about, mixed signals from the consumer. They're spending well, but they're borrowing more. They seem to be willing to travel and spend lots of money on plane tickets, but not so much money on notebook computers, and, lots of mixed signals. So we were over there to kind of try to help them understand a little bit about what's coming up and, what they might want to be thinking about next year and beyond.
So kind of a nice exchange, like an industry exchange of thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we many of these companies are our customers, and they've been, learning from us for years. But, it's always good to kind of sit down in a room face to face and have these discussions a bit more organically. We can learn from each other. That's exactly what happened.
Excellent. Well, and your timing was pretty impressive too, coming right before CES. So maybe you'll even have an opportunity to reconnect quickly with some of those folks, right?
I sure hope so.
That's great. So let's dig in a little bit more to your presentation, which was titled 7 Ways the Consumer Electronics Consumer Has Changed. So Paul, I'm gonna stick with you here for a minute. What was it that you really wanted attendees to take away from your session?
I think more than anything, I wanted attendees to understand that technology buyers are not a homogeneous group, nor are they static, right? Preferences change. Sometimes they can change quite quickly. Sometimes they can change quite frequently. But as we go from kind of a very, worst of times and best of times period during the pandemic, where yes, we're all locked down at home, a lot of our spending options are limited, and people did a ton of investing in home technologies, upgrading their entertainment, their working solutions. As we kind of pivot from that into what's going to be a bit more of a challenging year in 2023, lots of predictions about recessions and layoffs and other economic headwinds, continuing inflation. It's going to be more important than ever that companies start paying close attention to the details. They start uncovering some of these motivations that buyers have, uncovering some of the unique market segments that are available to brands, whether that's an existing market segment for a company or a prospective one or a new one or emerging one or one they didn't even think about. There's a lot to pay attention to. And I think that it's going to behoove everybody in the industry to start to understand those nuances a bit more carefully. So I really hope that's what people took away from this.
Excellent. And Ben, how about you? What were you hoping people would appreciate about your presentation?
Well, I think that one of the most important things that we've observed is that technology is a little more important, I think, to consumers, the household today than maybe it was in 2019. And you think about what we're seeing in terms of sales, right? The run-on of notebook computers during a time when people had to work and learn from home. Later on, when we were all kind of locked in our houses, higher sales of TV, streaming devices, streaming subscriptions. To me, this demonstrated the importance that technology plays in people's lives, right? That when there are adverse conditions, that we can remain productive and entertained through technology. And I think that's one of the sort of cornerstone insights that we had going into this presentation was that consumer technology occupies a different space in the household budget than it did before. God forbid there's another lockdown, or something causes kids to have to start doing school from home again. You have a lot of these solutions in place, and even on top of the hardware, right, there are applications, Google Meet, Zoom, all of these ways that we can stay connected while we're at home. And I think in its totality, what this experience has taught me is that technology is important. It's not just about gadgets, right? It's about our lives. It's about health. It's about convenience and productivity. And all of these things kind of came to a head over those couple of years. And I think that it has changed consumers to a certain extent for the long run. And that was really the thesis of our talk.
So this is interesting. I'm hearing a couple different things from both of you, maybe even starting with Paul's visit to Taiwan and learning, hearing from industry partners what they're experiencing. And now, Ben, you're talking about the consumer. Both of you also mentioned that during the pandemic, sales of things like, MacBooks or, tablets and stuff was really high. And that 2023 is going to be kind of a tough year because we won't be buying as much. And that makes sense to me. I mean, that's a very large expenditure, even if it is a bigger part of my budget. So, Ben, maybe it's some of the nuances that you were talking about where technology can take that existing hardware, if you will, but enable it to be more responsive for convenience or productivity or health. So can you kind of give us a little bit more there?
Well, I think what I mentioned about applications, I think is really important, that we had devices, that we invested in devices, but what helped us stay connected, what helped us stay productive were these ways to connect remotely, right? The Zoom and Teams and all WebEx, all these applications to me took on a little more importance, right? It's not just about the sort of casual status meeting where we're connecting business through these applications. And I'm not in an office, and I'm, still fully productive as I was before, I started working from home full time. And so I think that's just one piece of it, right? Think about on the entertainment side, and I know Paul is all over the trends in TV sales. And so 2020, of course, we saw higher sales of TVs, but also we can kind of think back, and people were very into their streaming subscriptions. We got a little more back into our, binging TVs and TV shows and films. And again, I think that was a product of our situation, but again, an area where an application, a streaming service is adding value back onto that TV, right? It's not just about the hardware, it's about what you're doing with the hardware. One thing that I wanted to point out is, even as we have a forecast, for 2023, which is lower than 2022, our kind of long-term forecast through 2025 still says that sales are going to be about 10% above the pre-pandemic time, right? Above 2019. So consumers are spending more on technology. We've, I think, been able to carve out part of the household budget and devote that to technology, right? Even as prices on everything go up, we expect consumers will, continue to pay higher prices for technology because it's important. And it's not as if sales are going to drop off a cliff in 2023 and 2024. Even though, again, we expect a little bit of plateauing, a little bit of sales coming back to earth. We're not expecting things to go back to, 2019 levels. Sales will still be about 10 to 12 billion higher than what we saw in 2019. And to me, all of those factors say that technology is important. Consumers are continuing to spend on technology. And even as we expect some sort of settling of sales, that it's carved out this piece of the wallet. And for the near term, as we look out at our forecast, it's going to remain pretty steady. So that's a very strong, story in favor of technology.
Yeah. So I want to just clarify too, because if I'm hearing you, you're saying that even though we're spending 10% more on technology than we were pre-pandemic, what you're really saying is that consumers are committed to increasing their overall budget, like a percentage of their overall budget to technology, because it's that important. And like inflation, as you said, does have prices higher, but I'm just that much more committed to making sure that technology is a bigger part of my life. Did I hear that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We've added TVs to extra rooms in the household. We've given family members their own PCs over this time. Maybe some of that settles, but I think for the long term, right, that this is the model, that you have that TV in that extra room, that member of the household. My daughter has a PC now. I think that's how, we will sort of trend going forward.
Remember when we all shared the desktop in the living room?
Who does that anymore?
Don't remind me. It's just for gaming now. We all have to fight over the gaming PC. But
So, Paul, tell me, how do you feel? Because you've really been talking a lot about your partner, the companies who you work with, your clients. What kind of advice are you giving them in terms of how to respond to some of these headwinds and the changing consumer engagement?
Well, to kind of build on what Ben was saying, something that I was sharing last week or a few weeks ago when I was meeting with clients in Taiwan was, this extra device spending, isn't in a vacuum. Right. These are new products that people have added to their household, and every product has an upgrade cycle. Right. They get replaced at some regular cadence, and that can be as short as maybe 2 or 3 years. It's not like toothpaste that you buy every other week. Right. It's like 2 or 3 years or as much as 10 years. So the better that you can understand what that cycle is and what motivates people to engage in that upgrade cycle, then you've got this much larger install base of technology products that people have bought for their home or work or other circumstances. And, that's not going to forever be unreplaced. It will get upgraded at some point. So the more that you can do now to understand what motivates people to make that upgrade, trigger that purchase, and then find out how they're learning about what the technologies are, the products that are available to consider when they make that choice. That's something important too. And that's one of the things that I think is going to be, particularly interesting, is understanding how consumers have changed the shopping process, right? I would say over the last 3 years, one of the biggest, revelations has been, changes in how they purchase products, more online shopping. Omni-channel shopping went through a forced revolution during the pandemic as retailers had to adapt to sell products to consumers where they were. And greater reliance on things like social media to drive decision making, whether that's doing, initial research, more in-depth research, understanding, reviews from users who have used those products before, in some cases, making direct purchases on those social media platforms. But we've also seen growth in direct to consumer, where, manufacturers who are selling products, without a middleman retailer, right, as a retailer themselves, has seen more growth in the last few years than online shopping in general. And it also offers the opportunity for better margins, more upselling. You can control how consumers learn about your products. So there's all kinds of ways that shopping has changed, not just in the types of products. In fact, actually, I think in some ways, maybe there's been a little bit less innovation in products as companies started just trying to manage their supply chains and get product available and maybe postpone some new product development or new technology development. That's going to become so much more critical in the next 2 to 3 years. And so part of the way that brands and companies and even technology providers, right? I was talking to component makers in Taiwan and trying to help them understand that if they know how the end consumer uses their particular technology or product, or what motivates, what triggered their purchase, how much more were they willing to spend on that particular technology, and they can do a better job in the next 2 to 3 years to market that, to help work with the manufacturers that incorporate those technologies, to do a better job of explaining it, and then at the end of the day, capturing more value, right, when the consumer spends money on that product. So there's lots of ways that consumers are changing, and even how they're buying products and how companies, reach that consumer beyond just the shelf tag at a retailer.
Yeah, and I love the synergy with some of the things that Ben was talking about the different things that kind of go through those technologies. The streaming services, the gaming, the entertainment. So Ben, any insight there on how that might be changing, or do you see the same kind of investment in marketing through different channels for those products?
Well, certainly I think the move towards more digital or connected shopping has, certainly driven some more investment in marketing and messaging and digital platforms. And I think that, continues to be a very important way to reach today's technology consumer. But as I think about, again, how consumers approach and sort of regard technology, I mean, we're here at CES, and one of the kind of unofficial, I would say, taglines from a lot of the larger technology companies at CES has been technology for a better life. And it's some variation of that. You look at a lot of these exhibitors, many of them which are showing, TVs and, audio products and classic consumer electronics products, but also appliances, washer dryers, refrigerators. To me, that says that, the technology is kind of going beyond the kind of gadget persona, and that appliances in our home can be connected. and there can be value associated with those features. I think we're still trying to find that value in a lot of connected appliances. But as I, again, look at things like refrigerators and laundry, energy savings with smart thermostats, security with home automation products, I can absolutely feel, I think it's maybe the tone around technology and how it's marketed changing, right? It's not just about watching movies and doing things on your computer and listening to music. It's about how your entire house operates. And the end of that is so that you can live a healthier life, that you can be, there's more convenience. I've got smart lighting that I can, program on and off with an app. I've got a smart thermostat that I can, teach when I want it to turn up the temperature and when I want it to lower the temperature. Again, even as we talk about this place that technology holds and the importance of being productive and the importance of, staying entertained, there's this whole other piece that's happening in the technology space, which is around kind of our everyday living. And I think that's one of the most interesting things that we continue to see at CES, that we've seen at this CES, is just the attention paid to some of these other benefits that technology holds for consumers. And again, I think that 2020 and 2021 has put a lot of those things into focus, right? Things like air purifiers and robot vacuums to keep the house clean. These are technology products, and there will be a lot of attention. There is a lot of attention paid to them at CES. And just, myself as somebody that has gone to this show 20 or more times, that's one very stark change that I've seen over the last couple of years. And right in line with our situation in 2020 and 2021, right? Technology is there to help us, it's there to keep us healthy, convenient life. And it's something, again, kind of beyond the gadget view that we often talk about.
Love that. So, Paul, any closing thoughts for you?
Yeah, like Ben said, and what I'm particularly interested in is understanding how manufacturers of products build, ecosystems that make just everyday living easier, better, frankly, more efficient, right? I'm super excited to go to CES and see things like, home automation, smart home products that help people save money on their electric bill, help people save money on their heating bill.
Especially now, right?
Right, especially now, right?
Yeah.
Or water usage, right? I live in California, and water usage is a perennial challenge, and so there are things like leak detection systems for smart home, or monitoring how much water the sprinklers are using. Smart home sprinkler controllers that can detect a leak. Whether or not you're using the most efficient wash cycle on your laundry machine or your dishwasher. There's all kinds of things like this that I think companies have kind of thought of the interesting little gadgety kind of things, like ding, your dryer's done, or your oven's preheated. Those are cute and interesting, but I really am looking for the things that actually save people money, give somebody a reason to make an investment in one of these technologies, because the payoff is a net positive ROI. If you're thinking of it as like a business, right? If you're a consumer, I'm going to spend $100 on a smart home gadget that's maybe saves me $1,000 in wasted water over the course of a year. Right? That's a good purchase. That's an easy sale. And I think for manufacturers who make all these different connected products, they've kind of underappreciated that aspect. And I think, especially in the smart home space, the release of, Matter as a kind of common communication protocol for smart home products and other, kind of ease of use things will make it easier for this sales pitch, so to speak, to be able to be successful. That's what I'm really most excited to learn about at CES.
Well, and in fact, before I wrap up, I do want to say that I know we're going to follow up this episode with one where you two provide highlights from CES, which really, that will be pretty dynamic. But Paul, I just want to say, you think that the dryer beeper or the oven indicator is a cute little thing. But buddy, those were big deals back in the day. So it has to start somewhere, right? That shows me how
Agreed.
far you've been tracking this stuff.
I still get the notification on my smartwatch that the dryer finished the cycle so I can get the shirts out before they wrinkle. It's a neat little thing, but it's useful, right?
It's
and
maybe not
there's
as,
more of that to be found.
Yeah, maybe not as sexy as saving thousands of dollars to be more green, but I'm all in. So let me just recap a couple of the things that I heard you both say, and that is that technology for the manufacturer is understanding that buyers are not a homogenous group. They're not static, and they have changes, behavior changes, need changes. And if anything showed us that, it was what happened during the pandemic. So it behooves these companies to really understand who the consumers are, what their nuances are. And then, as you kind of mentioned a little later, what is motivating them to make a purchase? Ben, you really even said like technology is so much more important to households today than it was pre-pandemic. And maybe it was that we got the run on the notebook computers and we have more entertainment at home, more work at home. But that people, even outside of those things, just the everyday functioning, we understand the important role that technology plays in our lives. So I loved how you both kind of came at it from both the manufacturer lens and the consumer lens. And I liked, Ben, the way you kind of really succinctly said, like, technology it enables convenience in our lives, it enables productivity in our lives, and it promotes health in our lives. So to me, those are things that I would like to see manufacturers really focus on. You also, Paul, really talked about how, the spending that will increase is a little bit different. And this is where those nuances of those consumers comes in, and understanding what you should be thinking of 2 to 3 years down the line, and where consumers are going to shop, how they're going to shop, and what they're going to be trying to solve for. And I think that we'll be looking to your next episode to learn how technology for a better life really kind of popped for you at CES. So with that, I want to thank you both for your time, and I'll look forward to the next CES conversation.
It was great, Joan. I was glad to be on this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. Please become a subscriber and let us know what you want to learn more about. We'll serve it up in a future IRI Growth Insights episode. Look for us wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to review IRI Growth Insights. Also, visit us on the web at iriworldwide.com and connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn.